baby. So what do I have? I've got scraps of flannel, and I have a baby who needs a bath quite often, right? And actually it's our granddaughter, so it's not really in our house. But anyway, I digress. So I was trying to think about different ways that we could use things that we have. And I don't know if you've ever made a quilt and you have lots of batting left over. Maybe you have a washcloth that's seen the end of its days. These are all things that you can use to make your own sponge or scrubby. Okay, so what it's like is it's just layers of fabric with batting in between that when you get it wet, it's nice and mushy and it's not quite like a washcloth, but it's good for all sorts of things. So I want to show you how to make it because it's really, really easy and I think you're going to love it. In fact, I just recently made a whole host of these for the different folks in my life because you can make them small or big, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so what you need for the basic size is 2 pieces of fabric that are 5 by 7. So here I have a piece of flannel and I have a piece of quilting cotton. Quilting cotton isn't exactly my favorite fabric for this because it doesn't have the absorbency that flannel does, or if you're using a previously loved and worn out bath towel, hand towel, or a washcloth. So that is always a great thing. You can have that. You can have the terry cloth on both sides. So you have both pieces. You could do flannel on both sides, which is what I did here. So you have options, okay? But I just wanted to show you, and this was a good contrast in fabric color so you could see it really well. The next thing that you need is 1 piece of batting that is 1 inch smaller. So this was 5 by 7, so this is 4 by 6. It's really easy math, which I really love. So what we're going to do is I'm going to lay out my turquoise piece of fabric. So I have the right side up, and then I'm going to take my flannel and put it right side down, right on top of it. Now, if you prefer, you can use pins and you can use clips, whatever helps you keep things together. Now notice we don't have the batting in here, but that's okay because we're going to add that later. So I'm just going to get a couple of pins in here just to get them secured down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around, and we're going to start down here about 1 inch from the corner, stitch, turn, and go all the way around and come back and stop about 1 inch. You really do want a nice generous opening right along the seam here because we got to get this guy inside there. Now we're working with a 1 inch different in the seam allowance, in the size of the batting. So we're going to use a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for this. If we did a full 1/2 inch, it would be too much. Even though it's 1 inch bigger, because of how fluffy your fabric is, you're going to need to have extra space for it to flip around to be able to get the batting inside. Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch this. So I have on my machine, I just have a regular straight stitch, and I have it just at the normal length, nothing really special there. And I'm going to go ahead and start stitching, and then I'm going to touch my reverse key and lock that in, because when we turn things right side out, we want to be able to adjust that. We want to, it's going to be pulled on is basically what I'm trying to say. So since it's going to be tugged on a little bit, we want to make sure it's reinforced. Okay, and I'm going to stop about a 3/8 of an inch away, and I'm going to rotate. Now, when you rotate, if it's not to the marking that you're using, I'm using the edge of the foot, then I would take one more stitch if I'm not quite there yet. And that always works well. So you just kind of eyeball it. And this is a really fun, easy project. So you don't have to worry about having your seam allowances exact, because this is not a quilt project, right? That where the exact piece sizes actually matter. This is a fun, fast, and easy little project. Okay, so I'm going to turn it around, and I'm a little bit shy there. So I'm going to put it back, take one more stitch, just one. There we go. And now rotate. And then I'm going to come down that inch, push my reverse key and lock it in. Use my thread cutter, take that pin on out, and here we've got our piece. Now, we are going to turn this right side out. And what we want to do before we do that, oh, wrong way, sorry. I've got all confused on myself. So if you notice, we have our area here that's open, and then we have the corners. Now, when we turn this right side out, we want the corners to look nice. So if we left it this way, we'd be trying to shove all of that fabric into that little tiny space right there, so it won't look good. It will end up being kind of round. So what we're going to do is trim off the corners really, really simply. And you don't want to cut through the thread. You just want to trim off the extra fabric. Now, not on this edge because I've got my stitches right there, but the other corners, the other sides, I'm going to do a little bit more trimming of the corner by taking another degree off of that. See how I've angled that? So the more that you give it space to breathe in there, the nicer your point will look. So this is just a kind of a general tip for any time you're making a square corner that you need to turn out. And then this one, I can do that right here, but not here, because I want to have as much space, much fabric in here as I can, so when I turn the corner. Okay, now another thing that I like to do is on our little guy right here, I want to make sure that that is, when I turn it right side out, that this is nice and easy to turn. Have you ever turned something right side out and then it's just crooked and lumpy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back on itself, and I'm turning it so the right on my seam that I had done there, and I'm going to press it. And this just kind of gets the fabric to realize that I'm going to need it to turn right there in a minute. Okay, and if you want to, you can even just whip around all four sides, because we've already done one, so it's just 3 more, and get that, the stitches kind of all pressed going the right way. And it will make it a nice crisper edge for you. All right, so I've got that, and I've got one more to do. And this is really unnecessary or not a necessary thing on a project of this size, but it will make things look a little bit better. And when you're doing something larger, it might help you well there. Okay, so here is my opening. This is my opening. And what I'm going to do is turn it right side out. Now, what I'm not going to do is turn it like that and bend this over the outside, because then that will stretch this edge. But what I am going to do is come in here and grab a corner and push the corner out. And then when you do that, then you get the bulk of the fabric here, and you can gently turn this so it's all to the right side. Now, it's looking a little messy, so that's where we take our point turner, and we're just going to gently push out the corners. And this point turner has a ball on it, so there's actually a big ball and a little ball, so it won't actually push through the seam. Well, I suppose you could if you pushed really hard, but you don't want to do that. So we just want to push out the corners, and there's that corner and one more. And notice that I'm smoothing along that seam line as I come to the next corner to help that turn right side out. Now, I have my my edge. And can you see how the one that I turned under is perfectly straight, and the next one just needs to come in to match it. So that is just a really easy way to make sure that you're nice and straight. And we'll just give this a nice little press. Okay, now the fun part, because we're almost done, and that's to get this inside there. So what I did is I've kind of rolled him up just so I could get him in, and I'm going to put the corners into the corners there, then unroll it. So I'm going to smidge him in, make sure he's in there. And I know it looked like there was a lot of space on the outside, but actually when you get inside, it's not as roomy as it is on the outside. Okay, so let me roll him over. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting getting your batting in there. Now, if you like it to be really fluffy and you're only using flannel like I did here, you can put a couple of pieces of flannel in there if you want to. Okay, so he's good to go. Now, what we're going to do is this is open, so we want to stitch that shut. So we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outer edge, then come in from there and stitch inside. And we're going to stitch in a second layer. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we do that and that will hold the batting in place. But the little outside edge is not going to hold the batting in place. It's simply going to close up our little hole here. Okay, so I've got him, and on the foot to the right of your center needle position, there's usually a little mark on the foot. Sometimes it's the same color, it's just an embossed area or a debossed area on the foot, or it might be red, you know, and marked with an actual color, and that's usually your 1/8 inch marking. So we'll just rotate, and then you can just easily keep your seam the same distance. And this is great for top stitching. So if you're working with a garment or anything like that, that you need some top stitching and you need your seam to be consistent, look for those marks on your foot. Okay. One more bit around here. Whoops, I went too far, so I'm going to push my reverse and I'm going to go back 1 stitch. And I went back 2. That's okay. I'll come forward again. That corner will be nice and reinforced. All right, and then we'll come around. And then at this corner, 1 more stitch. I'm going to rotate and I'm going to go over and stitch over the start of the stitches that I did before, and I'm going to back stitch a little bit. Then I'm going to raise my needle and I'm going to move over so the edge of my foot is on the edge of the fabric, and we're just going to zip around 1 more time. And again, this is securing the batting to the fabric, and I need 1 more. Okay, 1 more stitch is all I needed. I think I'm going to need 1 more there. Let's test it. Okay, that's good enough for me. Okay, so now you can also use these in your kitchen. If you make them out of old kitchen rags or kitchen towels, that would be a good thing. But if you're going to use it for, you know, yourself or for a gift as a spa type of an item, or in my case for a baby, make sure that your fabric is soft enough to be used on baby skin. And if you want to, other sizes that we can do, I'm just going to cut this and we're going to come back over here and I'll show you how this turned out. So here he is, he's all ready to go. I just need to trim my little threads and he is perfect, ready to go. If you want to do different sizes, cut it in half and you can make a smaller one, and this would be perfect for making a makeup sponge or a face wash little piece. If you want to make it more what do you call it when you do a sugar scrub and you like slough off all the dull skin, we'll say that, right? You can put mesh on the back side. And so I don't know if you, hopefully you can see that pretty good, but the mesh gives it that scrubby bits. So just make sure that you test it on yourself before you give it to someone. Otherwise, they might think this is better for your pots and pans, which you can do that too. And then you can always make it bigger if you want more of the size of your hand. So make them any size you want. The bigger you go, though, you might want to add some stitches in if you make it full washcloth size. But really easy to do. Take your scraps of fabric, and again, you can use just regular quilting cotton if you like, but if you're doing it for a baby, you might want something soft like the flannel, because that's really, really nice. And again, consider using fingertip towels or hand towels that may have had a different life. So anyhow, let's make lots of scrunchies or sponges and scrape, what do I call them? Scrubbies. So anyhow, enjoy, and I hope this is a good stash buster project for you.